بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, in today's Sirah talk, we will. Can you hear me, by the way, in the back? Okay. So, inshallah, in today's talk, I'll talk about a little bit just to give a little summary of the last week, so we always be connected to where we left off, instead of just starting off a topic and you would not know what I'm talking about. Inshallah, that will be my intent as we move forward. So, we'll talk about summary of the previous week, then talk about Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh in Madinah, and then how the da'wah reached to Sa'd bin Mu'adh radiallahu anh and Usayd bin Hudayr, because these two personalities played a crucial role in the da'wah of Islam to spread across Medina after they became Muslim. And then how the success in Medina happened, and then we'll talk about second Aqabah pledge, or it's also called Aqabah. It's called Aqabah al-Ula Thani, Aqabah Thani actually. That this was the second pledge that happened between the people of Medina and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now about the summary, so we talked about the stages of the da'wah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I said it in a manner that let's not get hooked up to this idea of first stage, second stage, third stage, or we can see that different scholars, whether they of the we talk about the one who are historians of the Seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the ones today, the people who learn or read the Seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they divide the phases of the da'wah in different stages. But in general, if you open any of the Seerah books, you will see these kind of wordings, like the private stage of the da'wah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was reaching out to people who were close to him, who was his family members and the friends and the one who were close to him in general. Does not mean the private stage of the da'wah means people did not know Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was calling him towards Islam. Okay, so the da'wah was known among the people, whether it was private or it became public. The thing that distinguishes between the private and public is, in public, it's actually geared towards the society. Okay, now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about carrying the da'wah to the society of the Mecca, meaning now it's not only changing individuals, rather talking about changing the society from the Jahiliyyah society to Islamic society. Okay? Then we find within that public stage that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to go to the other tribes besides the Quraysh or the Meccans. And we talked about last week different tribes, Banu Shayban, Amr ibn Sa'sa, Banu Hanifa, Banu Kalb, Kinda, and Taif, Banu Thaqif, and on and on and on. Now, and then the few people, 6 people came from Medina, and they accepted Islam during the time of the Hajj. And we talked about that the Hajj was one of the things that used to happen during the time of Jahiliyyah as well. It's not like only when Islam came and Rasulullah moved to Medina, and then you see the da'wah of Rasulullah is spreading, or they're doing the Hajj. Rather, it was happening in the days of Jahiliyyah as well. Yes, the Hajj was different, but Hajj was there in a different form. There was some of the very nasty kind of the rituals they used to do. Like one of them was they used to do the tawaf of the Kaaba naked. And after the Mecca was open, and Rasulullah became part of the Islam, at that time, then it was prohibited by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do the tawaf of the Kaaba, circumambulation of the Kaaba in nakedness. Now, so moving forward, so Rasulullah used to go during the Hajj times, during the time of when Islam was not there, it was not implemented in Mecca yet, and this is still the first 13 years of the prophethood. Rasulullah would go to to those pilgrims who used to come visit the Kaaba, and he would convey the message of Islam that was there at that time. As we discussed last week as well, that when we talk about the da'wah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Meccan era, the ahkam perspective, the rules that were revealed at that time were very few. They were really revealed, all the bulk of the rules were revealed when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina. Yeah? Okay, so then after 6 people, they accepted Islam, they went back to Medina. They were all from the tribe of Khazraj. And then they went back to Medina. And the following year, they came back, which was the 12th year. They came back and they had 12 people. And among those 12, 10 of them were from Khazraj. And among those 10, 5 of them were the ones that came the year before. Only Jabir ibn Abdullah is the one who did not come back. And instead, there 7 new people came to accept Islam and to give the bay'ah. This is the first time a pledge of allegiance was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as I mentioned, pledge of allegiance or the bay'ah, when we say, or bay'at ula or bay'at thani, they do not mean that they accepted Islam and acceptance of Islam is considered as bay'ah. No. Rather, bay'ah is apart from saying La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Yeah? So that's this is what the first bay'ah of the Aqabah happened. And then we see that the first envoy to Medina or ambassador of Islam was sent to Medina by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That was Mus'ab ibn Umair. And we talked a little bit about Mus'ab ibn Umair as well, that why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam picked Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anh as the ambassador of Islam. And we see this thing not only in this case of Mus'ab was sent, but rather any time. We find in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever he was choosing a person for a specific task, whether it was about this, to be the ambassador of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to leave Medina, when he was the head of a state of Medina, and he would leave a person behind him, that he is training to be a statesman behind when he was not there. So whoever was best for the job at that time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left him behind to take care of the specific task. And same thing we find for other things as well. Now, so Mus'ab ibn Umair was a personality. He had all it was required for this ambassador of Islam to go to Medina. He was one of the richest people. He has seen the wealth. It's not that the wealth would change his mind or anything. He left wealth for the sake of Islam. He already had migrated to Habasha twice, which made him a personality who was well aware of how to go and cope in a new environment and to understand the other, for example, cultural differences or traditions and work accordingly within all those things. So Mus'ab ibn Umair he was from a very noble family. He was from the Quraysh, and he was from Banu Abd ad-Dar. As I talked about, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was from Banu Abdul Manaf, and Abdul Manaf and Abd ad-Dar, they were both brothers. And from there, you had 2 clans. One was called Banu Abd ad-Dar, and the other was called Banu Abdul Manaf. Okay, so that's about so far what we discussed last week. Now today, we'll talk about Mus'ab ibn Umair first. When he went to Medina, he stayed with As'ad bin Zurara radiallahu anh. As'ad bin Zurara, he was one of the first people who was among the first 6 who accepted Islam, by the way, when they came to Makkah and visiting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, because of their work, we will see how much of an impact that had on the da'wah of Islam. And just to touch that idea of when we carry something good to the people, of course, Islam is khair. Islam is the biggest khair we can think of. Yeah? And if somebody comes to the fold of Islam because of one's efforts, now when anybody or the person who has become Muslim now, and now he's following something good you have started, when he does that good work, the person who has guided him towards the good, he gets the hasanat for that. So now think of that from the perspective of Mus'ab ibn Umair or As'ad bin Zurara, that because of their work, that the Medina became the first safe haven for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to migrate there and then establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then it expanded on from there on. And today, even we see the impact of that. We can feel it today as well when we're sitting in this room. Why? Because of the very same work, we are here. Otherwise, probably Islam would have not even reached to our forefathers. So this is their work because of that. So they are getting all those hasanat anybody is doing today. And we can think of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's the first one who started off to give the message of Islam to the people. So how much of hasanat the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be getting for anybody who does any good among the Muslims today? So we should not shy away from any, even a small good deed that we can do, and maybe somebody will follow us. And then it can have a trickle-down effect, and we can continue to get the hasanat. And we know that on the Day of Judgment, we will all be looking for any kind of a good deed that we can have so we can save our skin from the hellfire, yeah, and enter into Jannah. Like the hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talks about, that on the Day of Judgment, we'll be looking for even a half a day of charity that we have done in this dunya. So that can save us. That may tip the balance. Okay? So we should never ever shy away from doing, doesn't matter how small of a good deed that you feel like. Don't think of this way or be trapped by shaitan. Oh, I am doing something big. So hence, I don't have time for doing anything small. This is shaitan comes into our mind and plays with our mind and make us think, no, we don't have to do. For example, I can do something better, so hence I should not be praying sunnah. Yeah, after the furud, let's skip the sunnah. Maybe in some cases we are in a hurry and we have to take care of something, but let's not think of this way that any good deed is minor. Okay, whenever we have a chance, we should do it. Okay. And you can think of it, maybe somebody will follow us for whatever good deed we are doing. Okay, now, when Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu an and Usayd ibn Hudayr radiallahu an, when they were there, so they used to go door to door, carry the message of Islam, and whoever they were meeting, the tribal leaders, or anybody that they would meet, they would carry the call of Islam. So one day, Mus'ab and Asad bin Zurara, they were on their way to go to meet the people of Bani Abdul Ashhal and Bani Dhafar. And while they were on the way, they sat near a well and they were talking to some of the new converts, reverts, whatever term we want to use it. Okay? So the Mus'ab ibn Umair, as we know, he was sent to Medina to teach the people about Islam. So this was one of the things Mus'ab ibn Umair was always doing in Medina. So he was doing that, and Sa'ad bin Mu'adh and Usayd bin Hudayr, radiallahu anhuma, they were not Muslims, they were chiefs of their clans. Okay? And they started discussing, and they were aware of Mus'ab's arrival in Medina, and people were leaving idol worshipping and they were accepting Islam. Hence, they looked at them as they are taking our weak people away and converting them into this new religion. So they thought of them as their enemy. Now, here Sa'ad bin Mu'adh radiallahu an, he told Usayd bin Hudayr, he said, look, this guy who's sitting next to Mus'ab bin Umair, Asad bin Zurara, he's my maternal cousin. And he doesn't want to go and mess up this personal issues, I mean the relationships. So hence, he did not want to go and talk to Mus'ab and kick him out basically from Medina. That was the intent. That these guys are misguiding our people, we have to do something, let's go and kick him out. So now, when Usayd was very angry, so he said, okay, he'll go. And he got very angry. And he said, he'll go, and he had a spear in his hand. And he went there, and he started cursing him and started saying that you are misguiding our weak people. And he had a spear in his hand, as the riwayat, reports talk about. When he got there, he put the spear in the ground. Now, that shows the anger of Sa'ad bin Mu'adh. When he got there, and he started talking, so Mus'ab said very calmly that, why don't you listen to me? He said, if you are pleased with our talk, you can accept it. And should you hold it any hate or something, then you are free to immunize yourself against what you hate. If you don't like what I'm asking you, you don't have to worry about it. And now, Usayd bin Hudayr, radiallahu an, he got calmed down. He said, that's fine. That seems fair. So now, Mus'ab ibn Umair, radiallahu an, he recited some of the ayat of the Quran. And he mentioned what Islam offers. And when he mentioned what Islam is about, and the ayat were recited in front of him, Usayd bin Hudayr radiallahu an, right away he realized that this is haqq, this is the truth. Even though he came with anger. But one of the things Mus'ab did was what? He calmed him down first. So he is willing to listen what Mus'ab had to offer. And second thing, when he settled down, he started off with Quran. Quran was in their language, in the Arabic. They understood well what the Quran was addressing. And then he offered him what Islam was about. And those things when he mentioned, the response of Usayd ibn Hudayr, even though he was there to hurt Mus'ab or to kick him out, his response right away was that, how can I do what you are doing? There are different reports talk about the subject, but his response was not unlike today. Many times it happens, right? We talk to people about Islam, even talk about Muslims as well. Even to call them, let's go for Salatul Jum'ah, or let's go for regular Salah. And you will hear people, some of them would not even say no right away. They'll say, you go, I'll follow you, and they will never follow you. Yeah? Even though they understand the importance of Salah, basic obligation of Islam. But many of them, they are not doing it. Yeah? Okay. Now, Usayd ibn Hudayr, when it clicked to him that this is haqq, right away his response was, what should I do to enter into this deen? Look, even though he came very angry against Mus'ab ibn Umair, but when it was clarified to him what the haqq was, right away he wanted to do it. And this is all of us understand this way. Look, when we talk about the haqq here, we talk about Islam, it is linked to our eternal life. That if we die today, we have to face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is life waiting for us, which is forever. So how can somebody ignore something that important, which is forever going to be whether in pain or pleasure? Yeah? So today, if somebody knows that if you go to college for 4 years, you can get that much money to find a job. Or you go to 8 years, go med school or this or that, you will be making that much money. We put all our efforts, right, to make make money. I'm not saying I'm not downplaying this idea of going to school and all that. Of course, we should do that. But the thing is, we can sense that, right? We can feel it. We believe that because of that, I can be successful. And now here, when Mus'ab is offering, he's offering the success that's going to affect the life forever. It's not just for this temporary life that can end at any time. So Usayd bin Hudayr, right away, his response was that, tell me what can I do to become like you, what you are doing right now. Okay? And this is very important. Whenever we are talking to a Muslim or non-Muslim, calling towards Islam, make sure the other person understands what we're talking about. Okay? And you can only tell if the other person has understood what you are saying, that it will translate into actions. Okay? Not to undermine, of course, there are people who believe in Islam, but they slack. They do not do the ahkam. They do not fulfill the obligations from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of us can make mistakes. Not talking about the mistakes or lapses we can have in our actions, but talking about how do you know if a person is really convinced or not about the da'wah, whatever you're calling for. So that translates into action. That's what you see in the case of Usayd ibn Hudayr. And it's not like he has learned a lot of Islam or something. He has just been exposed to Islam right at that time, in the very same scenario when he came angrily to Mus'ab. He's willing to accept Islam and change everything. Now, Usayd ibn Hudayr, radiallahu an, he became Muslim as it was told to him to pray to rak'ah, or wash up, and all those things, and he accepts Islam. And now he goes back to Sa'd bin Mu'adh, radiallahu an. When he went back to Sa'd, and why he went? Because he told, by the way, to Mus'ab ibn Umair, he said, this guy, pointing towards Sa'd bin Mu'adh, if he enters into fold of Islam, there will be a lot of people, they will follow him. And that's what exactly happened after he became Muslim. So because he was impactful, different people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given different kind of talent, different kind of the effect that different people have on others. So Sa'ad bin Mu'adh radiallahu anh had a leadership qualities, and he was a leader, and people really respected him and his judgment. Hence, he went back to Sa'ad, and he wanted to bring him back to Mus'ab. Now, when he went to Sa'ad can tell by just looking at the face of Usayd bin Hudayr that this person is not the same person who when he went to Mus'ab, the kind of a facial expression he had. When he was returning, he had different kind of facial expressions. He could tell this person has changed. Just by one visit, this person has changed. Okay? And now, when he went, Sa'ad, to Usayd, the book does not go into a detail of that. The other books talk about the detail that how he actually guided Sa'ad bin Mu'adh to go and meet Mus'ab. Okay? That talks about that he mentioned as if they are plotting against him. Now, he went angrily now, and he realized that those guys are not angry at Sa'ad, and Usayd has tricked him to just go and meet Mus'ab actually. And now, Mus'ab had a very similar kind of a discussion as he had with Usayd bin Hudayr. And the impact was very same as well. Except that, Sa'ad bin Mu'adh radiallahu an, he went back to his tribe now, and he told his tribal members that he will not talk to them unless they become Muslim. He offered them Islam unless they become Muslim. Now, report talks about that everybody in his clan, tribe, they became Muslim except one person. His name was Al-Usayram. And he became Muslim on the day of Ghazwat Uhud, and he was martyred that day. Only one person. All of them became Muslim. Now, look at Sa'ad bin Mu'adh radiallahu anh. He just became Muslim. Did he have to go to some university or madrasa now to learn about the deen, become very sharp in the deen and everything? He have to become a Hafidh al-Quran? You don't see any of those things. Because when you talk about the Aqidah is a very simple, basic things. You don't need to be a scholar. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to enter into follow Islam. It's for everybody. And this is what we see with Sa'ad bin Mu'adh. You saw about Usayd bin Hudayr. And similar thing happened with Mus'ab even. And Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh, the example we talked about in the past as well, right? So you become, I'm not undermining the knowledge when people go and study. Of course you have to gain the knowledge of Islam and all those. I'm talking about just the issue of the Aqidah, the entering into follow of Islam. And Sa'ad was not holding himself back, that he is not going to carry the message of Islam to others until he himself has to go through very concentrated kind of a study sessions or something with some people, and then he will be able to talk to people. Whatever he knew, as the hadith of Rasulullah talks about, that take the message to the people, even if you know one ayah. Even if you know one ayah. So if you know one ayah, carry to the people. Don't think of it that you will become perfect and then you will start calling others towards Islam. And we can see the fruits of Sa'ad bin Mu'adh radiallahu anh as all the people in his tribe became Muslim except Al-Usayram. Just a side note, even though we may come back to Al-Usayram, but Al-Usayram radiallahu anh, he did not become Muslim. He did not become Muslim for next 2 years or so. He became Muslim on the day of the Uhud, as the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talks about, as you can see over there on the slide, that he is the one, he went on the day of the Uhud and talked to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he was not Muslim. And he said, should I fight first and then embrace Islam? And Rasulullah sallallahu said, no, embrace Islam first and then fight. And this person, Al-Usayram radiallahu anh, he was martyred in the same battlefield. As another hadith talks about, that he's one of those people that Rasulullah actually mentioned that he has done little but his reward is great. Another hadith says he's one of those people who did not accept or did not pray a single rak'ah, and he will enter into Jannah. He did not pray a single rak'ah. He became Muslim right at Ghazwat Uhud. He was martyred, he became a shaheed, and he will be inshallah in the Jannah. This is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned about him. So do not procrastinate anything that you want to do in your life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, you should know what you are doing, just to be very clear. Yeah, and another aspect of knowledge is sometimes what happens is we carry certain ideas in our mind that we have heard from others. It could be anything related to Islam. Look how much time we spend for our education here. We should be smart enough to learn about Islam as well. Especially the things that we say we are doing, we are following. Yeah? Learn about it. Yes, you may have to go to some time to the scholars or the people of knowledge. But go back and read. We should not be the one who stay away from the books of Islam. Read the Quran, read the Ahadith, read the Sunnah. And yes, go back to the scholars if you do not understand things. But when we are reading, or even listening here in this room as well, you may hear something you never heard before. Okay? Just because you're hearing for the first time, does not necessarily mean that must be right or must be wrong. Okay? Obviously, the one who speaks from here, he must be careful when he's speaking about any subject. So, always try authenticate. Go back and learn about those things. Read about it. That's why we are following a book here. So you guys can read the book and confirm that what we are reading is correct or not. What we are hearing is right or not. Whatever the subject is. Yeah? I'm not going into a specific here or there subject. Rather, any subject. Verify. Okay? And understand if there is a difference of opinion about certain things. You may have ikhtilaf. Scholars have ikhtilaf. Sahaba had ikhtilaf. This is why we had a whole session, or probably two, about just what does it mean by difference of opinion in Islam and how do you deal with differences of opinion. It's very important. It's a very important piece of knowledge that we should all have. Okay? Now, got sidetracked, but moving forward. Now, after this, when Usayd ibn Hudayr radiallahu anh and Sa'ad bin Mu'adh radiallahu anh, they accepted Islam. After that, Mus'ab was continuously carrying the message to as many people as possible, and until all the houses of Al-Ansar. Al-Ansar is referred to the people who were supporters, who gave the nusra to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to come to Madinah, and they protected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba, the weak Sahaba from the Mecca as well. Now these, that's why it's mentioned as the future helpers, had in all the houses there was at least somebody who had accepted Islam. Does not mean when Rasulullah migrated to Medina, everybody was Muslim. We know that there were people who were still mushrikeen over there. There were people who were munafiqeen even. And there were people who were Jews in Medina besides the Muslims. So it's not that everybody has to become good, then the goodness will start. No? So there will always be people who may be outliers, but the main thing was, in general, the call of Islam reached to the people of Medina. And they accepted the message. And that became the dominant thought for the people to accept Islam. Okay, that's the key thing. Now, okay, shortly before the approach of the following Hajj, which is the 13th year of the prophethood, Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anh returned to Mecca, carrying to the Prophet ﷺ about the glad tidings about this news. He wanted to mention what has he achieved so far in Medina. Okay, and that was sufficient information for Rasulullah ﷺ that how the situation of Medina was. And then the second pledge of Aqabah happened, which was the bay'ah given to Rasulullah ﷺ. And this bay'ah was different than the first bay'ah. Okay, and that was the precondition for Rasulullah ﷺ to migrate from Mecca to Medina. Now, in the second, which is the 13th year of the prophethood, which is 622 AD, or Common Era, should have had Common Era. I don't like to use AD here. But, so this was the Hajj when about 73 men and 2 women who came to Mecca, and they wanted to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And because they were very anxious to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they wanted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to come to Medina now, to take charge of Medina. And Ka'b bin Malik radiallahu anh, he talks about the story of the second pledge. When they came to Mecca for the Hajj, which is, this is why it talks about the Ayyam Tashriq, or the days of Tashriq, the 11th, 12th, 13th of the Dhul Hajjah. They were in the Al-Aqabah, and they were deciding to go meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But at the same time, they did not tell the other mushrikeen who were with them from Medina that they were intending to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So their whole thing about going to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in secrecy, that they were going to meet Rasulullah, and that's what they did. Now, when they went there, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with Abbas radiallahu anh. Abbas, the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was not a Muslim at that time. Remember that. And I have seen many times people get confused that two Abbas are mentioned in this Pledge of Allegiance. One was the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and other Abbas is the Abbas from Medina. Okay, this conversation. So Abbas radiallahu anh, he addressed to the people of Medina first, or Yathrib. He says, "O you people of Khazraj," and that was a common thing for them to be addressed as Khazraj, even though they had people who were from Aus and Khazraj, both tribes. But Khazraj was a bigger tribe, hence they refer to them, all of them, as the people of Khazraj. So that's why he said. And he's talking to them, and he said, the Arab used to call, So all you people of the Khazraj, he said, the Arab used to call them as Ansar, helpers later on, of course, whether they were from Khazraj or Aus. You all know the position that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad holds among us. We have protected him from our people as much as we could. He is honored and respected among his people. He refuses to join any party except you. So if you think you can carry out what you promised while inviting him to your town, and if you can defend him against the enemies, then assume the burden that you have taken. But if you're going to surrender him and betray him after having taken him away with you, you had better leave him now, because he is respected and well defended in his own place. The reason I read it like this as is, so we understand a couple of things. One, Abbas understood the intensity of this bay'ah. What were they discussing at that point? Second, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, even though going through very difficult times in Mecca, but because of, from the Quraysh, from Banu Abdul Munaf, or Bani Hashim, he was well protected by his own people. When we talked about the whole tribal history of Arabian Peninsula, we talked about the issue of whether they were Muslims or non-Muslims. When it comes to the tribal issue, at that time, they would defend their person who's in the tribe. And hence Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was well defended from that perspective. That was not an issue. So Abbas wanted to make sure, look, you are taking him. You better be defending him. If not, then leave him here. He's safe here. That's one thing. Second thing, a lot of times we hear about the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it kind of you get the idea as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was running away from Mecca. That's a false understanding. That's true. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was an assassination attempt was going on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or they wanted to kill Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the end of the time where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was migrating. But he never tried to escape Mecca before. There was no escape. The whole grounds were prepared in Medina. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the permission, he did not leave Mecca. So that was by the permission of Allah. He was migrating from Mecca to Medina. So it's not he's running away or escaping from Mecca to Medina. Rather, he's fulfilling what Allah commanded him. Okay? So even his leaving from Mecca to Medina was by the wahy. Okay. And Ka'b bin Malik radiallahu anhu, who was reporting this incident, he said, we have heard your words, and now, O Rasulullah, it is for you to speak and take from us any pledge that you want regarding your Rabb and yourself. That's Ka'b bin Malik radiallahu anhu. Now here, the different reports talk about this, the wordings of the pledge. So Ansar asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the principles over which they would take the pledge. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam answered, 1, to listen and obey in all sets of circumstances. 2, to spend in plenty as well as in scarcity. To enjoin good and forbid evil. Amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. In Allah's service you will fear the censure of none. to defend me, talking about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in case I seek your help, and debar me from anything you debar yourself, your spouses, and your children from. And if you observe those prospects, paradise is in store for you, or is something that you were going to get. So this was the pledge that was taken by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there are other reports talk about same thing. I just mentioned a couple of them. We're not going to go into the whole detail, but Abu Haytham, he interrupted when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking. He said, "Oh Rasulullah, between us and the Yahud, there are agreements which we would then sever." Okay, so if Allah grants you power and victory, should we expect that you would not leave us and join the ranks of your people? And that's a very famous statement that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made here, talking about that it will never be, it never will happen. Your blood will be my blood in life and death. I will be with you and you will be with me. I will fight for whom you fight, and I will make peace with those with whom you make peace. Okay, so that was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replying back to them. Now, this is the other Abbas bin Ubadah, and actually Ka'b bin Malik. Both of them replied to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they reminded the people of Khazraj actually, do you even know what you are pledging into? They want to show them the importance of the bay'ah here. Okay, and probably lack of time here. Maybe I will cover this respond of these people to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the pledge. So we'll leave we'll stop it here, and we'll talk about how the people of the Madinah responded back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the pledge next week. I just want to remind you another thing. When we talk about next week, let's see if we are able to go to the Hijrah section as well when Rasulullah migrated. There will be good time for us to talk about that, since we are in the month of Rabiul Awwal. This is the time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made the migration, by the way. This is around the time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam started the migration. He started the migration in the end of the month of Safar and continued on, and he made it to Medina in the month of Rabiul Awwal. So this is an important time from that angle also, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about the subject accordingly. But I think it's a good stop. If I go in this direction, there's more slides that I must cover, otherwise it will not make any sense. So if there's any questions or comments about so far about the pledge, just make sure you understand the pledge that was made was not a pledge of just becoming Muslim. It was not anything like that. As a matter of fact, they're talking about defending Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They understood well that what kind of a pledge or the bay'ah that they gave to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we'll stop here, inshallah. If there's any questions or comments, I'd like to reply.